So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 47. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaja Nandavo Bhagamaraya Govindaya Namo Namah Nama Pangajanapaya Nama Pangajamaline Nama Pangajanetraya Namaste Pangajankre. So we will read the verse today. Let me just share my screen. Let me go to my screen first of all. This is the verse, and now I come back here and share screen. Here is the verse. Okay, share. Yeah. So we have text 47. Apaveshu sokrityeshu bhalena pakvabuddhina papam kritam tat bhagavan sarvatma chendumarhati. One more time. Apaveshu sobhrityeshu bhalena bhakvabuddhina papam kritam tat bhagavan sarvatma chendumarhati. So, translation. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Everyone is responsible for his own action, either pious or sinful. Rishi Samika could foresee that his son had committed a great sin by cursing Maharaj Parishit, who deserved to be protected by the Brahmanas, for he was a pious ruler and completely free from all sins because of his being a first-class devotee of the Lord. When an offense is done unto the devotee of the Lord, it is very difficult to overcome the reaction. The Brahmanas, being at the head of the social orders, are meant to give protection to their subordinates and not to curse them. There are occasions when a Brahmana may furiously curse a subordinate Kshatriya or Vaishya, etc. But in the case of Maharaj Parishit, there were no grounds, as already explained. The foolish boy had done it out of sheer vanity in being a Brahmana's son, and thus he became liable to be punished by the law of God. The Lord never forgives a person who condemns his pure devotee. Therefore, by cursing a king, the foolish Ringi had committed not only a sin, but also the greatest offense. Therefore, the Rishi could foresee that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save his boy from his sinful act. He therefore directly prayed for pardon from the Supreme Lord, who alone can undo a thing which is impossible to change. The appeal was made in the name of a foolish boy who had developed no intelligence at all. A question may be raised here that since it was the desire of the Lord that Parishit Maharaj be put into that awkward position so that he might be delivered from material existence, then why was a Brahmana's son made responsible for this offensive act? The answer is that The offensive act was performed by a child only, so that he could be excused very easily, and thus the prayer of the father was accepted. But if the question is raised, why the Brahmana community as a whole was made responsible for allowing Kali into the world affairs, the answer is given in the Varaha Purana, that the demons who acted inimically toward the personality of Godhead, but were not killed by the Lord, were allowed to take birth in the families of Brahmanas to take advantage of the age of Kali. The all-merciful Lord gave them a chance to have their births in the families of pious Brahmanas, so that they could progress towards salvation. But the demons, instead of utilizing the good opportunity, misused the Brahmanical culture due to being puffed up by vanity in becoming Brahmanas. The typical example is the son of Samika Rishi, and all the foolish sons of Brahmanas are warned hereby not to become as foolish as Ringi, and to be always on guard against the demoniac qualities which they had in their previous births. The foolish boy was, of course, excused by the Lord, but others who may not have a father like Samika Rishi will be put into great difficulty if they misuse the advantages obtained by birth in a Brahmana family. So we'll read the translation once again. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy, who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. Hare Krishna. So we are coming back from Vrindavana. All these days, 9-10 days of hearing in Vrindavana. And now we are back to Canto 1, Chapter 18. And Parishit Maharaj is going to appear, our Sukadeva Goswami is appearing in the next chapter. So this chapter is setting the context. While Suta Goswami is explaining the situation in which King Parishit met Sukadeva Goswami on the bank of the Ganges, and how the narration of Srimad Bhagavatam started. So to recap the exact sequence of events that happened very briefly, because we have heard very extensively on these verses. So very briefly speaking, we had King Parishit was hunting in the forest, and he was very much this thing. He was very thirsty and exhausted from his hunting trip, and he wanted some water to drink to quench his thirst, and he found Samika Rishi's ashram and walked in there, expecting some few words of hospitality or some water. But he found the sage was in trance. He was not even aware of the king's coming into his presence. And so Parishit was very much feeling, his own, because of his own condition of being in a very thirsty and exhausted mood. He said, "What is this? This sage, he's not even paying any respect or attention to his guest." And then he to condemn his act of indifference to him, he put a dead snake that was lying there around the sage's neck and walked away from there. The king was very much aggravated by his physical condition of exhaustion, and he could hardly understand why the sage would be immersed. He didn't pay much attention to it in that condition of mind, though the king is King Parishit is a great devotee and very tolerant. We have read one whole chapter about his worth and his qualities, and he is the most exalted devotee of the Lord. Yet he did this act. And then the little boy son of Samika Rishi, who is called Shringi, who was playing with his friends, who was only 9 years old. And he could see what is happening because of his Brahmanical power. And he thought his father is being insulted by the king. And he took it to heart very, very much. And he was offended because he is proud of his Brahmanical tejas. I mean, he is also very nicely trained, powerful Brahmana, although he is just a mere boy. So he took hurt that his father is being insulted by the king, and he pronounced the very powerful curse on Maharaj Parishit, that he would die by the bite of the Tatchaka bird, snake bird, in 7 days. So when King Samika Rishi woke up from his trance, and he noticed this snake around his neck, but he heard from his son whatever happened. He was very much aggrieved and very repentant for his son, what he did, because he knows the king is such a saintly personality. He is a most exalted devotee of the Lord. Now the boy, the Lord will not forgive his son if he curse such a devotee of the Lord. So he is afraid for his son, as well as he is taking feeling a great sense of responsibility how to repair the situation, which is in favor of the king as well as for his son. So he is speaking to his son. That the king, we have heard in the previous verses, because of the king's protection, we are all living in this under his shelter. And if he is not there, we will all be like scattered lambs with no protection, and the thieves and robbers will plunder our state, and then there will be complete anarchy. What have you done, my son? So you are disturbing the whole social order by destroying the king. I mean, by your curse. And he is when we have a very perfect saintly king in the so a perfect and saintly king personality of King Parishit. So he is praying to the Almighty Lord that he is the only one who can forgive this boy because of his innocent age, and so this is his prayer to the Supreme Lord. So the Rishi, the sage, is very conscious of the responsibility of protecting the Kshatriya order, which rests upon the Brahmanas. It is not to curse them or in any way hurt the social body of body politic in any way, the Brahmanas should not use their power to abuse the Kshatriya order. In fact, it is they who direct the king in governing the people in the proper order under the and the king is the representative of the Lord. So it is a great cooperation between the Brahminical order and the Kshatriya kings that the society thrives in the proper culture and civilization. Otherwise, it will be complete anarchy. And just like Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita, so if the Kshatriyas are all killed, the woman will be polluted and Varna Sankara will happen. Then where is the values of our society? So similarly, the king is afraid for the whole state. What's going to happen? This is a very sort of a situation which is beyond a repair. So he is praying to the Lord that his son be forgiven for his young age, although he is puffed up because of this sin. Then Srila Prabhupada is saying in the previous verse that this is the beginning of Kali. Kali finding his way into the affairs of the state. That is, he is finding a hole, so to say, to poke his head into the Brahminical order and the Varnasrama society to disturb that one. So he has appeared on the tongue of Sringi. Because this is the beginning of the Brahminical pride, which is causing the downfall of the Varnasrama order. The Brahmana's knowledge and his power of the power of his austerities, everything is meant for the welfare of the state and the protection of the royal order. Instead of that, Sringi is abusing that power here. So this is the beginning of the downfall of the Varnasrama society, because we have seen the degraded caste system which came into being as Kali advanced progressively. So there are instances in Bhagavatam itself where we have seen how the Brahmanas have taken control of state affairs, like because when King Vena was a very he was not a king of the proper what is it called? Saintly. He was not at all saintly. He was abusing the powers he had inherited, and so much so that the Brahmanas were disturbed, and they took control of the state, and they ordered that king be killed. Actually, King Vena, and by their power of austerities, they had Prathu Chakravarti appear, who is an incarnation of the Lord himself. And so much is in their hands, we have seen, for the welfare of the society and people at large. They can do. But if they fall down, then progressively the other orders, like the Kshatriya orders, they become very conscious of their power in their hands. And they will go after the power is the might. The might is right. That is how they rule then. So, and then the Vaishyas become very greedy for their for wealth and power in society. So, and then similarly the lowest order, that is Shudras, they protest that they have their rights and their claims for higher status of life, etc., etc. So in the Kali Yuga, we have seen that the Varnashrama system has totally failed, and the stories of abuse of the lower caste in India is simply, horrific. At least Mahatma Gandhi came to their shelter and they said they are also people of God. Come on, Harijan. He called them Harijan. But still, we hear such horrific stories of how higher caste abused the laborers and the Shudra class of women. Actually, in the true Varnashrama order, just like the body cannot survive without all its limbs in proper place and order, like without the head, can one person be functional at all? So that is the Brahmanical. Brahmana comes from the head of the Lord, and the Kshatriya comes from the arms of the Lord. Without one's hands, how can you perform anything at all, any activity? And the Vaishyas come from the waist, actually, and the Shudras come from the legs. Without any of these limbs in proper function and order, can the body work? Similarly, the Lord has created the Varnashrama system, that is Chaturvanyam Maya Sashtam Gunakarma Vibhagasa. So Lord has created, because they are all not one above the other. They are all vertically meant to do service to each other and to the Lord directly. So this is the beginning of the failure of the Varnashrama system because of Kali's influence, and then Srila Prabhupada is saying in the second paragraph of the purport, how if we see this as the offensive act was performed by a child only so that he could be excused very easily, and thus the prayer of the father was accepted. But if the question is raised why the Brahmana community as a whole was made responsible for allowing Kali into the world affairs, the answer is given in the Varaha Purana. That is, when the Lord incarnates, he destroys the demoniac and protects the sadhus or the devotees of the Lord. And but not all of the demons may be killed by the Lord personally or liberated. So the rest of them are allowed to take birth in the Brahmanical order, Brahmana families. And they are puffed up. They have the demoniac traits, Swabhava in them. So they become puffed up. And instead of advancing towards knowledge and humility and such wonderful qualities of a Brahmana, they become puffed up and misuse the Brahmanical culture. So the Shringi is representing that downfall of the Brahmanical order. So now it's already time is up. So let me stop here. So we have just 1 minute. If we remember Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya and greatest Vaishnava of Lord Chaitanya's movement, he says, he hardly considers himself a Brahmana or a Vaishnava or anything. He says, I would be happy if I take birth in a Vaishnava house as a dog, so that I may deserve prasadam. Such is the Vaishnava humility, that the true Vaishnava, that is who is even advanced from the Brahmana stage. So this is a very perverted reflection of that true humility and Brahminical culture and responsibility of the Brahmana that we see in here in this beginning of Kali. So please, if I have misspoken, please forgive me. And please, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, we can have some discussion. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So no questions, we can end the session. And thank you very much. Vancha kalpatarubhya cha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a nice day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.